when I put the job description out for the product marketing role that we filled with Alex, one of the bullet points in there was that you understand how to use AI, but more importantly, when not to use AI. There's a really fine line between, hey, I need to do something really quickly, or I need to summarize this information, or I just need like some ideas to get me started. And it's a whole other thing to try to write a newsletter using just raw AI. So it is really important, but I think the human element and kind of the taste level and the understanding of when the human element needs to come in is really important as well. But some of the things we are doing with AI does help us scale, helps us look a lot bigger than we are, move a lot faster than we would without it.
Hello and welcome to Best Story Wins. I'm your host, Josh, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jason. And today our guest is Jess Cook of Vector. Hey, Jess. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Hey, Jess.
Yeah, Jess. So for listeners who may not be familiar, would you mind giving us a quick overview on Vector and what you do there in your role?
Sure thing. Vector is a contact-based marketing platform. And so most marketers will pretty quickly understand what that means simply because they're aware of account-based marketing. And so we kind of take that principle of targeting very specific accounts and companies, and we take you a level deeper and get you data around the people at those accounts and companies that are most likely to be showing intent or be able to purchase from you. So just gives you that level deeper of data, which I think marketers are craving today. They've been running ABM programs for about a decade now and just haven't been able to get real clarity on like who they're going after in those companies. So we're seeing really amazing success with folks who have run successful ABM programs, but really want that layer deeper of data. So I am the head of marketing at Vector. I just started there about 4 months ago, so I'm still pretty like wet behind the ears and loving every minute of it. I have a content background, so I feel like it's becoming more prevalent to see heads of content turn into heads of marketing. But it's not usually the route that you see typically. So pretty excited to, I don't know, like be one of those folks that was able to do it. And I'm really, really enjoying what I'm learning.
Oh, that's so cool.
Can you tell us a bit more about your backstory and what led you to this role? What's your overall journey been?
It's a weird one. I love telling this story because I don't think really anyone starts out with a dream of being like in B2B marketing. When I was in college, I don't even think content marketing was like a role that had been invented yet. So obviously didn't start out thinking that's where I would end up. I started my career as a copywriter on B2C accounts, mostly McDonald's, Kellogg, and Kimberly-Clark were like my 3 big accounts that everyone kind of knows and loves. So my first job out of college, I was writing jokes on Happy Meal boxes and headlines for McDonald's billboards, which was a ton of fun. And eventually I moved into what was then termed digital marketing and joined a digital marketing agency where I was a copywriter on Kellogg and Kimberly-Clark. So I was, this was again right around the time when, Facebook and Twitter, they were allowing brands on their platform. So I stood up a lot of the first ever kind of brand pages for Kellogg and Kimberly-Clark on Facebook and first kind of brand accounts on Twitter. I tweeted as Tony the Tiger for a while, which was really, really fun. I wrote scripts for the guys that play Snack, Crackle, and Pop for, some online videos and things like that. So a lot of like copywriting for, household name, consumer packaged goods, and eventually worked my way up to creative director for those accounts. But always had just a strong affinity for like storytelling through copywriting and through video. And bringing emotion into play, even when you're just talking about like a toilet paper or a breakfast cereal. And so I think that's kind of, that's what drives kind of where I am now and how I think now even about B2B marketing. And I made the leap to B2B in about 2019. I just wanted to take that skill set and like go in-house and see what happened. And so I've been doing that ever since.
at Vector, we were talking about this a couple weeks ago when we were chatting. Um, you're all really focused on building a new category with contact-based marketing. And before we hopped on this interview, we were talking about Seinfeld. We're all old enough to remember when account-based marketing was first coined and kind of what went into that category creation. Having experienced B2B marketing for a while and kind of seeing others do this well and maybe not so well, how are you approaching category creation, and what are you all doing to actually define that term and own the space?
Yeah. One, we have, it's the great Spider-Man line of like, with a great power comes great responsibility, right? Where it's like, we have the power to really shape what this means. But it also carries a responsibility that we want to do it well. We want to do it with very human content. We want to be good kind of shepherds of what this category will become someday, because it won't just be us as players. It's already not just us as players in the category. So we want to be the ones to really like build the foundation. So one of the first things we did, and people can shout that this is dead all day long, I wholeheartely disagree, is we really decided we were going to own that term in SEO. So I have an agency. They're like an organic content systems agency that specializes in SEO and GEO. And so something we're working on right now is building up our library of content that helps us own the term contact-based marketing. But it's not like, your typical, like, here's the history of account-based marketing. And now you can know what contact-based marketing is. Like, it is very human, interesting, like, let's get these people to the point type content, because that's what people want nowadays. We don't need the historical explanation of anything as our intro anymore. Let's get people to find the information they want. And kind of the really exciting side effect that has come out of that is, because we're building this category, because we're some of the first to be owning this content, we're also now powering the GEO, kind of the LLM answers to questions people are asking about contact-based marketing. So that's been a really exciting thing to see, that starting to grow and benefit us, is that we're starting to pop up as the answer to, like, what is that question? Or sorry, we're starting to pop up as the answer to what is contact-based marketing, and who are the players in this category, and what are the tools I should look at if I'm considering this approach.
Yeah, just because I can't stop thinking about it, just to go back a step, I got to know what the highlight was of your Tony the Tiger era.
I did win like a Digiday award for best mascot on Twitter, which was really exciting. And I think I'm going to butcher the actual tweet, but one of my favorite tweets was something around like how typing is hard for a cat, like hashtag no opposable thumbs. And that was like when hashtags were really huge. So it was like, oh, that's really clever. So yeah, that's probably like, yeah, the best nugget.
Thanks for indulging me on that.
Of course. Happy to.
Back to your current reality. So you've talked about how you got and kind of diving deeper on SEO for a minute. So you've mentioned getting that what is contact-based marketing page to rank number one, and also show up in the LLMs within 2 weeks. What was the thinking and execution behind that launch, and what made it so successful?
I think we did a lot of research around like, what are the top account-based marketing pieces of content out there, and can we kind of piggyback off of like, okay, if the angle on those is like best practices in account-based marketing, and how to build an account-based marketing strategy, like, let's kind of look back at what's worked for kind of our jumping off point of account-based marketing, and create the best pieces of content based on those for contact-based marketing. The current kind of top performer is an article called "What is Contact-Based Marketing?" It's a question a lot of people are asking right now because it is a new category. So I think we have that going for us, where kind of a 101 level article on it makes sense. because it is so new. 101 level articles don't always make sense because there's already so many of them out there for so many categories and so many topics. But for this one, it hadn't been created yet. And so that was where we started, where it was just like, what is this thing? Let's be the ones to define it. Let's use some product kind of screenshots where we can. Let's talk through like what that looks like and our points of view on it. So that kind of the definitive article out there really points people back to us as like the best way to do this. So that was really where we started. And something that I'm doing with my agency as well is tracking all of the major LLMs, what they're saying about us for a specific set of questions. And so, for example, like even what is vector was one of the questions that we're tracking. And for a while, it showed up as in ChatGPT, a manufacturing company in New Zealand, which we are not. And it has slowly shifted to, vector is a contact-based marketing platform, right? So we've seen how our content is now starting to affect the answers that are being shown there, which is more and more where people are going to do their own research on, a new tool.
You touched on this already, and we're all kind of figuring out as we go and as we learn more about the LLMs, but how we're approaching content now is shifting from where it was 3-4 years ago and prior to that. How are you all approaching content ideation now and coming up with themes to write about now that we have to take into account the LLMs, especially with regards to discoverability?
Yeah. We have a few different flywheels. So one is obviously the SEO, GEO stuff, right? Where it's like, these are like really well thought out kind of guides and information. They're pretty dense information that people, may want to kind of dive into. But that's not kind of that's just one kind of anchor that we have going on right now. The marketing team at Vector is myself, head of marketing with a content background, and our product marketing lead. And her name's Alex Verdon. She's incredible. She was at Metadata kind of during their heyday as their product marketer. And I just feel so lucky to get to work with and learn from her. And so the two of us are, creating content on a daily basis around the whole funnel, right? She's product marketing, so she's much more in kind of like mid-bottom funnel. I'm have that content background, so I'm much more in like the brand top of funnel space. But we have a concerted effort in the things that we talk about. So we kind of know like back half of the year, this is really the promise of the product we want to talk about. And everything the two of us create and our, contractors and all of that create for us will be around that topic. And she's going to focus on that product led, and I'm going to focus on that thought leadership, branded stuff. So she is creating for us and leading all of the product launches, all of the kind of nurture competitive sales enablement content that is going to come out of those product launches. And then I'm using what we're launching in products as a guide to, our thought leadership content. Like, what are the things we should be talking about that's really going to back us into what we're selling? And then kind of third, we have a podcast ourselves that we just launched in May called This Meeting Could Have Been a Podcast. And it is, I wouldn't even call it top of funnel. It's like brand all the way. We're very, very brand driven. And the ideas that you get dropped into my one-on-one with Josh, Vector's CEO, and how we're talking about marketing decisions and how we're, deciding on budget and are we going to do this event? Are we going to start a podcast? Are we going to bring on an agency? So each episode, you'll love this, is very like Seinfeld-esque in that, the first episode is Jess wants to bring on an agency. And the second episode is Josh goes to a conference and has a billion weird ideas. And the third one is Jess wants to start a podcast, right? So it's kind of like all of these almost daily decisions you have to make, or these kind of big moments that you have to sit down with your CEO and discuss. And I'm lucky in that my CEO gets marketing and many don't. And so what we're trying to do is really help people who don't have a CEO that gets marketing. And how do you navigate those conversations? How do you get them to trust you? And how do you get them to buy into your thinking?
Yeah, I love the look and feel of Vector. I remember you sharing with me that a lot of what you see now is already there in place when you started, and so that's got to be a really cool feeling to start at a company where you can tell just by looking at the website that it's not going to be an uphill battle to get people on board for the value brand.
Yeah, it was a major reason I started there. After I found, I seeing the website, I thought, oh, they must already have a designer and a copywriter. And then I met Josh and I was like, who's doing your website? And he was like, it's me. And I was blown away because I mean, I think there's not very many CEOs that can think conceptually like that, to come up with this amazing mascot or to really clearly state a value proposition. Because they get so close to the product and they're, it's their baby, right? And so it's really hard to be the one who came up with something and also be able to write the really great headline about what it is that's super clear, right? So yeah, that was part of the reason I joined. Was it was very clear he understood and valued marketing and branding.
That's awesome. And you've shared that your content doesn't need to be perfect on day one, and that you can kind of build up and layer in rich formats and add polish over time. With that in mind, how do you balance speed and quality when you're launching something new?
So I think about it as a big old test. That's all marketing is, right? So let's take a blog post, for example. So one of my, I think one of the smartest things you can do is get a blog post to like a B plus, A minus, and publish it and see what happens. And if it starts to take off, if you start to get really good traction on it, like that's your signal. Okay, we can make this better. We can get this to an A plus. Let's find some supporting video that maybe we already have, or we create something. This bulleted list probably better as a visual table for people, right? Let's go in there and let's create that. But like I wouldn't take it to that point to start, because you do all that work, you put it out there, and it ends up being something that it turns out maybe isn't as valuable as we thought it could be, or it's just not, people aren't kind of searching for this, or maybe we're putting it in front of the wrong, maybe we've written it for the wrong audience, maybe we need to up level it or down level it in terms of technicality or something like that. So I think it's better just to get like a good draft out, see what happens, and then optimize from there. And something we're doing this with at Vector is our programmatic SEO. So we have a number of topics where we're kind of taking the same framework and we're, creating, let's say, 20 articles from that framework. For example, alternatives articles. So we could do vector versus competitors. We can do competitor versus competitor. That right there gets us, let's say, 20 some odd articles. You do all the combinations of competitors. And we can use a very similar framework and we can kind of fill in the blanks. And out of those 23, if we're lucky, we'll get really great traction. And so what we'll do is we'll go back into just those 3 and we'll build on those and we'll let them go again. And then maybe 2 more of the originals start to take off 6 months down the road and we'll do the same thing. But I think it's much better to use that iterative approach first than it is to try and get it, 100% on that very first day. It's very much, I like to call it an MVC, minimum viable content. I think that's what we do with products, right? We get kind of the best possible simple version out there first, and we get feedback on it and we make it better and better and better. And I think we should do the same with content. It's just a smart path to one, better content, and 2, like listening to the signals to tell you which content your audience really wants.
What about repurposing? You've written about, I believe you call it the repurposing multiplier. What is that, and how do you think about repurposing? Like, do you think about it from the onset, like when you have an idea or a series of posts that you've come up with? Do you think about repurposing at that point, or is it more of a after the fact kind of issue?
Really good repurposing starts from the beginning. So if you think about how you're going to repurpose something as you're creating it, you're going to build in so many more opportunities for repurposing than you would if you waited until you were done. Justin Simon, if you follow him on LinkedIn, is an incredible resource for this. He actually has an entire community around this called Distribution First, where like you think about distribution at the same time you're thinking about like what is the best angle on this idea, so that you can build all of those opportunities to repurpose and distribute right into the piece of content. So for example, that might look like, how do I turn a blog post into, there's 4 sections in here. Like, is each of those could be a really interesting social post that like brings people in to learn more. In a podcast, it could be that we have kind of mini segments within the podcast so that we find some really easy moments that we can clip every single time. It like helps me scale faster because I know, the opening is always going to be an interesting thing I can clip. And I have kind of this mini segment, 3/4 of the way through, I'm always going to clip that. People really like that section. So I think it really comes down to how are you going to architect this piece of content so that you can pull out those pieces really quickly and easily and get them out into all of the channels that work best for you. And then how do you measure that is a little bit of the like back of the napkin math. I've not found any tool that can really do this easily because it is tough. It's very much like attribution, right? Where you're kind of going out and you're finding all the places that you have put some part of this original piece of content. And you're trying to figure out like, how many people saw this? But to define it, the repurposing multiplier is the difference between the consumption in your original piece of content and your repurposed pieces of content. So for example, I'm just going to take the first episode of This Meeting Could Have Been a Podcast. So that was our very first episode. We got a decent number of views on the full episode in YouTube. We got a good number of downloads on all of the podcast platforms. But then we took those, the clips and we put them in social. I turned it into a blog post. I made shorts on YouTube. I put the video into Spotify, and that, kind of fueled up their discoverability platform. And what we ended up with was a 46x repurposing multiplier, meaning 46 times more people saw the repurposed content than saw the original piece. And something that I've been kind of like has been jogging around in the back of my mind as I look at that number is I recently was talking to Devin Reed, who was head of content at Gong and Clary and now has his own kind of consultancy. But I said, hey, Devin, you've been on YouTube now for a while, like with your podcast. Like, what have you learned? What's the most surprising thing you've learned? And the thing he told me was that people will come up to him and say, I love your show. Love it so much. I think it's so great. And he'll go, oh, awesome. Like, what's your favorite episode? Or what one have you watched lately? And they'll go, well, I guess maybe I haven't watched a full episode, but I've seen so many clips. And in their mind, seeing a clip means they have seen the show, they are a fan, and they will tell you, they'll tell you or anyone that they love the show. And that to me is like, okay, that is proof right there that 46x, like, we're creating fans of a brand at a 46x multiplier than if we had just kind of put the show out there and expected people to watch the whole thing. That's just not people's reality nowadays. So I love that one. That's a KPI for me for any video content for sure. But I mean, you can apply that to research reports, to blog posts that you turn into social content, really anything that's kind of something you're going to atomize and distribute.
Yeah, we've always loved this approach, and people have called it the big rock or the turkey with the turkey slices. I was Jason Miller, I think, and it's cool. I haven't heard somebody actually like create this multiplier and like actually analyze like how much more mileage are you getting just from the derivative and repurposed content. That makes it fun too. I like how you're thinking about that.
It does make it fun. It makes it a lot easier to sell something like a podcast or a video series in too, because if I can tell my CEO, hey, I think we're going to get, around 50x return on just the repurposed content in terms of visibility, man, that makes it a lot easier for him to say yes to the budget, to the time, all of that.
Yeah, because then you're not talking about X dollars for one video.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that perspective. And and we've touched on this a bit, but so you joined Vector and built a content motion in your first 2 weeks, and really like the overall approach to launching these SEO pages and repackaging the brand kit into a campaign. And you talked a little bit about the balance of speed and quality, but also how do you approach building momentum that fast without it becoming or feeling totally chaotic? Or does it feel chaotic and you're okay with that?
It does feel chaotic and I'm okay with it. I don't want people to think I'm like just out here, sipping mimosas. While my content works in the background, that would be lovely. No, it does feel a little bit chaotic. I think something that's helpful is I've done this a long time. And so it kind of it just becomes second nature after a while to spin up a video campaign or, I can see exactly how I'm going to repurpose this podcast every single episode. I know exactly what I need to do before I even get the footage back, right? So experience helps a lot. What I will say for people who are like, man, I'm new to this and I've got to stand this kind of stuff up is, what I like to do is get a program under my belt for a little while, a month, 3 months, whatever kind of takes to like see it through and understand the value of it and make sure there's impact. And then I like to go find someone who can take that from me and run with it. And that might be an agency, that might be a single contractor. It may be a full-time hire, if that's the case. If you have enough of those that kind of fit under one role that you can find someone to do all those things for you. But I think for a long time, I thought like, I need to be the one doing this. They hired me as a content marketer and I need to be the one writing all the things, publishing all the things, interviewing all the people, making the videos, cutting the videos, right? And you just can't possibly do all that. Although sometimes the expectation is there, whether it's self-imposed or from leadership. But I think the idea is like, yes, maybe try something out for the first time yourself. And then what that does is it really helps you understand kind of the nuance of that program that you've just launched and the type of person you will need to run it. And then go find that person and give it to them so you can go experiment with something else. Something I'm doing this with right now is we're launching an influencer pilot program. So we've not done that before. I've not done that before. I've been paid for my own posts, so I kind of understand the process as a creator, but have never managed a full program myself. So I'm going to do this one time. I have a handful of creators who are going to run some posts for Vector as a paid partnership. We're going to give it 3 months. We want to see the impact. We have a number of different types of influencers. We kind of want to see like which influencers give us the biggest bang for our buck and what kind of content are they creating and how did that go, right? And so I just want to learn a lot. And then I'm probably going to bring on an agency to run the rest of it from there on out. Because it wouldn't be smart for me to continue doing that. Like I'll learn what I need to learn and then I'll give it to someone who's probably going to do it much better than I am. But I first want to make sure it makes sense for us. So that would be my advice for someone. Like it's going to be chaotic. Try to find the right people after you get something kind of get your what is that called? I've got get your skis under you kind of thing. Like once you get your skis under you and you really understand how a program should be run, find someone to hand it to.
I like how you're thinking about the timing too, right? It's like try it for a quarter, figure it out. And I think what's interesting too about that approach is like, if you actually like roll your sleeves up and you do the work, when it comes time to offload that work to someone else or delegate to someone else, whether it's an internal person or an agency, you actually will have the experience that will make it so that you can provide that feedback when they're handling it. So I think that's really smart. And I imagine like limiting the number of experiments that you take on at any given point in time is helpful too in managing the chaos, right?
Yeah, for sure. I'm taking on 3 big bets in Q3. And so I'm going to tackle those and kind of see how they go. And maybe 2 of them will pan out. Maybe all 3 will. And then I've got to figure out who's going to run those so I can take on some more big bets. So yeah, I think it's easy to get into the trap of like, we're going to do it all. And I think you have to be really selective, and you do have to make some guesses as to like what you think is going to have the most impact, and try those handful of things and then save the rest for later.
Yeah, that's great. So we're all aware now that you no longer sell to like one person, you're selling to teams. And so for a product like yours, you need to come up with content that speaks to various people on the quote unquote buying committee. So I imagine in your case, engineers, founders, sales reps, et cetera, have to be considered when it comes to creating content. So how do you work with people on your team that maybe are more subject matter experts than yourself to get the kind of content that needs to be created so that anybody who's involved in the buying process can go look at Vector's content and make an assessment for themselves?
Well, I think the lucky thing is I get to market to marketers, which feels like a dream come true. What I am not, though, is an ABM marketer. I've never led a full-scale ABM program, and our ICP and our buyer personas absolutely have, and have been for years. I'm not even a demand gen marketer, right? Where like I would understand how I could take all of this contact level information and how should I use it the right way to put ads in front of people. And so a lot of this comes down to speaking to customers and understanding how they're using Vector, understand what they were doing before Vector, like what frustrated them about not having that information. What was the eureka moment when they realized they could have that information and the things that unlocks for them. It's also just talking to my colleagues and friends from previous roles, or people I know on LinkedIn who are just really great ABM or demand gen marketers, and talking to them about like what are you struggling with right now, or what are you working on right now, and like what's keeping you up at night about it, and just really understanding their day to day. Because I think at the end of the day, like yes, we need to get people to understand what Vector is. But as a brand marketer, as a content marketer, like a very, very close second for me is like, I just want people to like us and think we're cool and know who the people are behind the brand. And that feels really important too. That like, even if you're not going to buy Vector tomorrow, 8 months down the road, when you are in a position to, you remember us, you remember our ghost, you saw an ad, you saw some weird clip from our podcast with me and Josh that made you laugh. Any of that just keeps us top of mind, feels maybe even, I don't know, maybe the most important, right? Especially because that group of people is largest by far, right? The 95-5 rule, where it's like, everyone, 95% of the people out there are not going to be buying Vector in this quarter. So let's continue to provide them value, even if it has nothing to do with our product. Let's just like solve problems for marketers.
And within all of this, how important is AI now to your team's workflow? Is that AI expertise table stakes for roles you're looking to fill, or what sort of specific applications of AI are you finding particularly valuable and useful?
I love this question so much. So when I put the job description out for the product marketing role that we filled with Alex, one of the bullet points in there was that you understand how to use AI, but more importantly, you know when not to use AI. There's a really fine line between, hey, I need to do something really quickly, or I need to summarize this information, or I just need like some ideas to get me started. And it's a whole other thing to try to write a newsletter using, just raw AI. So it is really important, but I think the human element and kind of the taste level and the understanding of when the human element needs to come in is really important as well. But some of the things we are doing with AI does help us scale, helps us look a lot bigger than we are, move a lot faster than we would without it. So something that's really important and exciting that we're doing is I'm helping our founders post more regularly on LinkedIn with AI. So I have a 30-minute meeting with them every week where I'm asking them questions about like what's going on in the market, things I heard on a sales call, what's your take on this? Hey, we have this new product coming out. I want to get like some thought leadership around like what problem that solves and why we're building it the way we are. And at the end of that 30 minutes, I have a full transcript that I can load into a project that I trained inside of Claude that understands each of their tone, voice, and structure of their top performing LinkedIn posts. And it helps me craft those. And again, they're not perfect, but they get me 85% of the way there with some light editing. I can pass them off to them. And they have a week's worth of posts ready to go. So that's been a really, really exciting use of it. It also helps me scale things like the podcast where, we go back to that repurposing. Each episode, I want to be able to put out, like a blog post of the top takeaways. I want to be able to give Josh some clips. I want to be able to get those, the episode description and show notes, the clip titles, clip descriptions, all of those things out really quickly. And so I've built a lot of systems around that as well. So it helps us move fast. But again, like there are sometimes points where you just have to like scrap what AI is giving you or like just start it yourself, right? Or know that like what it's given you is just a starting point and it's going to need a heavy hand in editing.
Your CEO had a post, I think it was about a week ago, about I think when you were on vacation, all the different things he did in marketing while you were out. I thought that was really good.
I didn't know that was happening.
Oh, really? Okay, so he wrote that one on his own.
Yeah. So this was hilarious. So I was on vacation, and before I left, he kept going, "Don't worry about all the marketing ideas I have while you're gone." And I was like, okay, I won't. And I thought he was just kind of like messing with me to get in my head before I left or something silly. And I'm in a pool in Turks and Caicos. And because I don't know, obsessed with it, I'm on LinkedIn for some reason. And I see his post about how he's going to overthrow marketing now that I'm on vacation. And he had this whole campaign cooked up and it was amazing. And it was so much fun because, there's Wi-Fi down there. So I'm, commenting on it. And my comment on one of his posts got more reach than like any of my posts the week before. And people were really invested in this story of CEO took over while his marketing leader's on vacation and she's chiming in and trying to prevent it from happening. Right. And this was completely organic because I didn't actually even know he was doing this. So it is funny to like try that we're playing out kind of this in the podcast and on LinkedIn, these personas that I think a lot of people have to handle every day, which is like, how do I deal with my CEO who's a little bit like unpredictable and goes rogue every once in a while. And I don't know how to get buy-in and I don't know how to like tame his energy or her energy and being the person to have to kind of figure that out. And so I think there's like this really fun thing that's going on right now that we didn't really mean to create, but we have, and now we're going to kind of run with it is we're kind of embodying those personas and people are having a really good time seeing how it plays out.
Yeah, I thought it was so great. I mean, I think one of the things that was so good about it is that it's, as you touched on, it's so relatable. Like we're co-founders of this company, Jason and myself, and like it is really tempting to like want to go rogue, especially when people are gone. Like, and I'd be lying if I said I'd never done that before. So, and I imagine for people in marketing leadership roles, like that's probably one of the biggest fears that y'all have is, you get into the office one day, or you log on one day, or while you're on vacation, you catch wind of something that your CEO wants to do, and you're like, why are we doing this, right? And then it's your job to manage and make sure it stays on the rails. So that's, I think, why people loved it so much. Curious to hear your take on, just B2B marketing in general right now. Obviously, there's so much going on. There's so much that's been kind of in flux for the last 2 years or so. What's something that you're seeing right now play out that you really enjoy? And on the flip side, what's something right now that you're seeing play out that's maybe become a trend that you're like, man, I wish this would just kind of go away?
Something I'm seeing play out right now that I'm really happy about is companies letting their people kind of take the lead when it comes to marketing. I just saw a post that HubSpot put out the other day where they're kind of going to stop worrying about the HubSpot account and they're going to let their message come through their people. And they're not going to do it in a way that's like totally Selly and Schlocky from HubSpot, it's like, how does each individual marketer at HubSpot contribute to the success of HubSpot in their own way, and letting them talk about that. And I think it's so important that us as marketers this is kind of second nature to want to get out there and talk about what we're doing, to help the others in your company do that as well, even if their audience isn't aligned with your ICP. And I'll give you an example of that. We have this incredible engineering leader, Andrew, and he'll post on LinkedIn every once in a while, and they're great. And we're always like, Andrew, we need you to do this more. Like, this is amazing. And I know engineers are not our audience, but I think it's really interesting for other engineers to see how he's thinking about building Vector. And when he goes to hire someday soon, people will have seen that and be like, I've got to work for this guy. I want to go to this team. They're thinking about things really, really differently. And so it just kind of helps all these other different areas of business that maybe you don't think about, right? Having our customer success folks talk about what they're doing to help our customers is a really nice proof point when you want to show, potential prospects like, hey, here's a story straight from our head of solutions page about how she helped a customer through this exact thing you have a concern with. Right? Those are really, really important. And I think it just builds up the idea that the people behind the brand, who really is who you're buying the thing from anyway, right? If we're honest, like, I trust them, and that's everything. Something I think we're starting to turn the corner on this. But I don't know, is this idea that like everything has to drive a lead. And it's funny, I'll talk to content marketers and brand marketers and some really great demand gen marketers, some really great product marketers who understand that. But I think where that comes from, it's top down, right? There's a lot of just leaders, founders, CEOs, CFOs who can't grok this idea that you have to have the brand stuff and the kind of demand gen, lead gen stuff working in tandem at all times for it to really work. When you don't have the brand demand stuff, the actual demand stuff falls by the wayside as well, right? Like, you'll see if you pull your brand investments, the effectiveness of your demand gen campaigns decrease as well, because no one has kind of that warm layer to even understand who you are. Do I like this vibe they're giving off? Like, do I need this solution? Do they solve a problem I have? I don't know if all you're trying to do is sell me every single time, right? And people can't buy something they don't know about. And for some reason, that is really, really hard for leadership who don't understand marketing to get. I think we're starting to turn a corner. I'm starting to see brand take a larger role, people behind a company take a larger role, top of funnel, just like value without asking for anything, take a larger role. But it's hard because eventually it has to lead to pipeline. It has to lead to revenue. So it's really hard to attribute, right? No one, we haven't been able to really figure out, like, how do we measure all of that brand stuff to say that it did eventually lead to something. So I think we're turning the corner there simply because I see companies like Vector, like Clay, like Clue out there who really value like great content that entertains and educates at the same time. And I think that pendulum's going to start swinging the other way. I just wish it would swing faster.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, there was that like false dichotomy that people would write about for, I think it was like for a year, like what's more important, brand or demand? And it was like, they serve each other and they reinforce each other. Right. And like, it's cool to hear people kind of not just waking up, but like being more vocal about the reality. And I was talking to someone the other day and they're like, there's not a serious person in B2B marketing that thinks that those things are at odds. And I think that was a great summary, take on it.
It is so good. It's so smart.
So what's something you've learned about content that you feel like most marketers still overlook, whether it's novel or even a fundamental?
I was actually talking to a VP of marketing today who was like, are you team meme or no meme? And I was like, okay, hold on. I need to like unpack this a little bit. Like, where is this coming from? And she's basically saying like, my CEO wants us to post these memes, but like sometimes the ones he wants to post are like not appropriate for a business to post, to come from a brand. And I was like, okay, I actually think you might have like two things here you need to think about. First is the founder versus the company, like two very different things. And yes, while the founder speaks for the company, like his social presence is still his social presence. If he feels like he wants to post that meme, like let him do it. And he like, great, spicy, get something out there. Like, let's see what happens. But yeah, maybe you need to document kind of the social do's and don'ts for the brand. Like, we don't post memes that, kind of cross these lines. The other thing I told her I thought she should think about is like, do you post memes at all? Like, think about your audience. Does that feel cool to them, or is it crude? Like, I know I worked in cybersecurity for a long time, and like, it didn't feel right to post memes. Like, they're a more sophisticated level of humor than that. It would feel too lowbrow for them. So like, think about that. Like, is there a way you can take the same thing that you're trying to talk about in that meme and turn it into a different piece of content, right? If a meme is just a way to commiserate about something that annoys us all, is there a different way to do that? And one of the examples I talked about was, we did this thing when I was at a company called Island, where there was this piece of technology that like was universally loathed by our audience. It's called VDI. It's just a horrible experience, and they're looking for any way they can to get rid of this technology in their stack. And so we did this whole campaign at Island around like breakup letters to VDI. And when we posted that content, it wasn't a meme. It was like a very carefully written like image that looked like a kind of a breakup letter to VDI. It did this funny thing where like halfway through that you get the spinning wheel of death, because VDI is like notorious for having lags. And it was the first time we ever saw that audience use the laugh reaction on LinkedIn. And that was a huge unlock for us, where we're like, okay, we have found something that like they're reacting to in a different way. And we didn't have to go lowbrow. We didn't have to like do a meme like, another brand would, but doesn't feel right for us. And so I was trying to like tell her, like, maybe think about that. Like, what if you were to come up with the meme of the, that someone in your audience would gravitate toward, but you want to draw a line in the sand that says, we don't really do memes. That's just not our thing. What's the piece of content you can create that helps them kind of commiserate together, have a laugh at like, yeah, that is a really annoying thing, but doesn't have to use like the typical meme format.
Jess, we're getting close to time here, but curious to understand like what's next for Vector, and what are some of the experiments that you haven't touched on already that you are just really excited about letting rip on?
Yeah. Q3 and Q4 for us are going to be big. I have some ad budget. I have some experimentation budget. We're going to be doing some event sponsorships and maybe some stunts. So really excited about that. I'm just excited to learn. Like, Q3 for us is going to be a huge learning quarter. Like, what ads and what messaging is working? How are people looking at our influencer program? Did that resonate? How did that event go? Like, when we did that crazy thing, did people talk about it? Did it book any more demos, or was it just kind of like a quick flash in the pan moment of talkability? So those are the things I'm going to be looking at, and I'm super excited about, because then going into Q4, which is really like software buying season, really excited to optimize on those learnings and like double down on the stuff that works, so we can go into Q1 of next year and having crushed it.
That's awesome. Jess, thank you so much. This has been an awesome conversation. For people that want to learn more about you and find you online and Vector as well, where's the best place for them to do so?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, Jess Cook, and I'm the only Jess Cook at Vector. There's not very many of us anyway. And vector.co if you're interested in being able to see, the people, the names and LinkedIn URLs of the folks that come to your website, the people that click on your ads that don't convert, all of those things, vector.co.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys both for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jess.